Welcome back, folks, to the 7th episode of our RimWorld Continental Army series, where at the moment we're actually holding presidential debates. Now just try to bear with me through these presidential debates, as our country is still in its infancy and we're not really sure how this should go. I do know for a fact, however, that Henry is going to absolutely win this thing very easily if we don't have any other contestants. But truly, who would be crazy enough to go against Henry in a presidential race anyhow? He has been our leader for a very long time. Gasp! Jonathan, it's you! Very well, Jonathan. I suppose if anyone stands a chance against Henry, it's you. And I suppose every good presidential debate needs a good moderator. Ah, now that's more like it. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So, this question's actually for both of you. The Frog King poses a massive risk to American security. Do you care about law and order?
Are you in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow it.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go ahead,
I'm in favor.
Ahora mismo, díselo ahora. En español, si quieres.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Uh-oh. Things have escalated. Very well, I suppose we'll have to settle this debate over a round of fisticuffs. And the winner shall be our very first president. Dear Lord, he's done it. Henry has won the fist fight and is our very first president. Congratulations, old chap. I knew you had it in you. Not a moment too soon, it would appear. Well, I'm just glad that that's finally settled. Better luck next year, Jonathan. You poor. Somebody should really pick him up, though. But, you know, with Henry being our very first president, he really needs some presidential attire. So we wasted no time on having Beardy, our very best tailor, go and begin making him some. Now, this process did actually take a very long time because the uniforms and whatnot required a lot of work. And they were also Prussian uniforms because, once again, we don't have any American uniforms, but it'll work. And I think Henry looks pretty darn spiffy in his new uniform, but you know, he really needs something to set him apart from the other troops. Maybe a little flair from the old cosmic wrath. Hi-ya! Ah, now that is what I'm talking about. He looks good. Yes, from the uniform to the little golden ropey thingies, to the golden ropey shoulder pauldrons to his powdered wig. Now that is a president. And of course, a wonderful, handsome president is going to need a wonderful, handsome White House, so we began working on the interior of the White House for him. We would use nothing but the best materials to create the most interesting furniture. We actually made the same old shit that we give everyone else, but don't tell him. Anyhow, yes, like I was saying, the most interesting, beautiful furniture is something. I do, however, really like this table that is in Henry's room from the, I believe, Aaron's Cottage mod, which is an amazing mod that we've been using for the majority of the furniture this series. Now, speaking of mods, I have added a few new ones that you can find in the mod list in the video description, one of which actually gives us American Civil War weapon technology. We just have to research it, of course. Now, I don't want to get too crazy with the Civil War era technology. I want a very slow progression as we take on the Frog King, the British, and anyone else that stands in our way. I don't want to go from Neolithic to Spacer in the snap of your fingers. But of course, I do think that some technological progression is going to be much needed and is going to keep the series interesting. But while they are researching these new weapon technologies, while we're on the topic of weapons, we need a place to put all the damn weapons we have. We have so many rifles and whatnot, yet we keep them in our warehouse where they take up precious space from our resources. So we decided to build a small armory so that we can store all of our weapons. And of course, then we had the tedious and frustratingly slow task of moving all the bows and muskets and yada yada yada. You know, we got all that shit packed over there. It just took forever. But that was fine, of course, because by the time we got all these obsolete antique weapons over to the armory, we had actually finished up some of the research and we were able to create a galore gunsmith table. I feel like the words are a little out of order there, but we can actually make these new weapons. And even with the little bit of technology that we've currently researched, we still have quite a few guns that we can actually make, but these guns are going to take wood, steel, and most importantly, components. So we're going to need to begin mining components out of the hillside, trading for components if we're ever going to equip this entire army with these new weapons. Which of course, obviously, is the game plan here, and I kind of dread it because I know it's going to take a lot of resources and a lot of time. But now that we have the appropriate amount of resources and the appropriate technology Technologies research, let us begin building our very first Sharps M1859 sniper rifle. Now Beardy is our best smith, crafter, tailor, yada yada yada, but it still takes Beardy an extremely long time to make these weapons, and this is why I was saying I really dread arming the entire army, but we'll get around to it. We'll get it done. But of course, as Beardy works tirelessly on our very first sniper rifle, we have other business to attend to. We have a few horsies that have entered the area, so of course, naturally, we're going to attempt to tame them. A lot of you guys have said that you'd like for me to set up kind of a cavalry unit, so I'd like to do that, but of course we need horses because our donkeys aren't going to cut it. Plus, of course, the more animals that we have that we can ride, it's going to make our caravans faster. It's just going to be great all around. Horses are exactly what we need. Good old American thoroughbreds. And while we were out petting some ponies in a field, Rowdy, who was one of the people we captured previously, has decided to join us. Now, of course, Rowdy is going to be joining our militia. So we let Rowdy go into the warehouse and pick out some shitty clothing, and then Rowdy got to go into the armory and pick out some shitty weapons. But then, after that, huzzah! Beardy has finally made our very first Sharps model sniper rifle. Now, of course, we felt pretty bad that Jonathan had lost the fist fight and thus lost the election for president, so we gave him the very first sniper rifle. And of course, he is the leader of our sharpshooter class, so he deserves it. Plus, of course, he would be able to get more acquainted with it and test it out, and then be able to teach his men once we're able to create sniper rifles for them as well. Now, to test out our sniper rifle as well as our sharpshooter class, I decided to send them and them alone out on a trade mission with the French. During this trade mission, we're going to be trading roosters, we're going to be trading people, we're going to be trading weapons. We're basically just going to try to sell the French all kinds of shit for some moolah. Not only that, of course, but after we load all these weapons up out of the armory, that's going to clear up space for our new weapons that we're getting and also weapons we would get from future raids and stuff like that. And after some time, our sharpshooters and their donkeys finally headed out with all the goods and people and whatnot to sell to our French allies. Now, while they're off on their trading mission, though, I do have a little bit of a special treat for two of our soldiers, two lucky men. With Henry as our president, of course, the president is going to need some special type of guard, like the Secret Service, or something like that, of course. But this is ye old times, so we're not gonna have people in black suits and ties with earpieces. Nay, we have two handsome, strapping young lads in green uniforms. The two of them together are going to be the presidential guards, keeping Henry safe all the time. Now, they do need some new names, though, and I decided to take some names from our comments on the last video. So thank you guys ever so much for commenting your names and whatnot. If you'd like to continue doing that, if I see any that stick out or I really like them, we may use them for some of our soldiers. But as for now, we're done with these damn names. We have goods and people to sell to the French. We ended up selling Trev as he was the weakest link, and then began selling every single bow and arrow that we could. They wouldn't purchase any of our muskets for some odd reason, but we sold our bows, so we made some silver. Back at home, it looks like our boys in blue had managed to tame a few of these horses, so the next thing we would work on here is some armor for said horses. Preferably wooden armor, as we need our steel right now, but we could always upgrade it later. Naturally, we would task Beardy with creating said armor. As I've mentioned several times, Beardy is what you young kids would call the GOAT. Ah, look at our flourishing civilization. Beautiful, isn't it? Truly a beautiful and honorable symbol of American prosperity. Oh my, what is this? Dear God, it would appear that the bullfrogs in a local tribe are having a massive battle, but not only that, within our territory. And if that wasn't bad enough, if that didn't make you nauseated, sick to your stomach, it would appear that the bullfrogs have become commies. Oh no, that is quite enough. It's one thing to be a disgusting, hideous bullfrog, but it's another to be a communist, disgusting, hideous bullfrog. We are going to help our tribal allies defeat these putrid filth. Lucky enough for us, based on the size of the tribal forces, it would appear that it won't take much to help them defeat the bullfrogs, but we're still going to chip in. And of course, so we immediately began firing our mortars at the bullfrogs. Unfortunately, this really didn't amount to much, as we missed them with the only shot that we fired tired, but that's okay, we'll have other chances. After some time, the tribal forces and the bullfrogs began making their way towards one another on our western side of our fortification, and so thus we would start the beginning steps of our plan to help our tribal allies. For you see, we're going to hide inside of our walls until the frogs are close enough that we can actually fire and kill a few of them, and then we're going to jump back in and hide again. Hey look, I said I was going to help our tribal allies. I didn't say I was going to fight the whole darn battle for them. Besides, look at them. They appear to be holding out on their own pretty well. The earth shook from the clamor of footsteps of the tribespeople and bullfrogs running at one another. The sounds of distressed toads in agony filled the air. It was like music to our ears. The battle continued to rage on up until the point that all the humanoid bullfrog creatures were dead and the only thing left were the small toads on the ground, and after they stomped on a few of those, the rest of them got scared and started to run away. The horrifying, tragic sight left over from the massive battle was truly a pitiful sight to see, honestly. And you know, these tribes people, they may not have been Americans, but we will make them honorary Americans for their sacrifice here today on this battlefield against these horrible communist bullfrogs was immense. I salute you, tribesmen. But now if you'll excuse us, President Henry needs to soak his old bones in a nice hot bath. He saw a bit too much death for one day. It's time to ease his troubled mind, as well as wash the day's filth away from his supple skin.